Hi, I'm SB Rawz, a coach and a messy whole human, and this is Laura Guilliams joining me for another all up in it conversation. 35-ish minutes of reporting from the complicated, exhilarating midst of learning. Laura, you're here. Yay!
Yay! I'm so excited.
Me too.
Anytime I get to hang out with SB, I'm like super stoked. Oh
I
my
know,
God,
right?
yay. Yeah.
It's always going to be a good time. And I'm excited to get to share you with people who haven't met you yet, and so they can witness a bit of your growth awesomeness. And so I want to invite you to start us off by contextualizing. How do you understand yourself as a human these days?
I really love this question. I love the way you shape this question and phrase this question. Yeah, and I think a lot about it. And we've, in the leading up to this, the question's been asked multiple times, and I'm like, every single time, I'm like, gosh, it changes every time. And I think that's such a beautiful testament to being human, is that we're always changing and that we're always evolving and growing and developing. Um, so as I'm thinking about that question today, and what really feels very relevant is I am a recovering people pleaser.
Preach.
Yeah, recovering people pleaser, and I who's doing the best I can to make the world a better place, one interaction at a time, while also remembering the value and importance of keeping very healthy boundaries for myself. Because as a recovering people pleaser, boundaries are extremely difficult. They're a huge challenge. So yeah, so I've really had to learn how to do that. So because I spend a lot of time sitting with people who are in the midst of some of the worst experiences of their life. And there's that part of me that just so desperately wants to just fix it for them and make it better and jump in and do. And then the part of me that has learned how important it is and how respectful it is to allow other people their journey and other people their process is really happy and honored to sit back and just bear witness to it rather than getting hooked into it. So that is really how I've been spending my time thinking about how am I operating in the world right now? How am I showing up on a daily basis to the best that I can?
Yes. Oh, that pinged me in like five different ways at once. And I love how you brought in respect because I think that's something as a fellow recovering people pleaser and recovering perfectionist, that's one of those things that I couldn't have framed it that way until I heard you say it, that it is it isn't trusting people to be able to make up their own. I'm not saying it well because it's a new thought, but it looks like you know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I think it, and it's not something that I just randomly learned one day. It was taught to me by a wonderful teacher who really had to challenge the what she called the God complex in me. That when I am trying to fix people, or I'm trying to control of, and really is what is this need to control other people's experiences so that I don't have to feel whatever I'm feeling. Like I don't have to feel bad, or I don't have to feel the discomfort and pain of watching other people experiencing painful moments like that. Like I'm trying to control that. And she's like, that's really like a major God complex, and the savior complex, this idea that we've got to run in with our fly in with our superhero capes on
Mhm.
and save everybody so that the world can be a better place, when really it's more likely that it's me trying to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And how selfish
Hmm.
is, what I took from that is how selfish is that of me to truly steal an experience from somebody else, to take that experience away from them, even when it is painful and difficult. It's theirs.
Yeah. And there's something a little bit ironic to me, I don't know if that's the right word, but about the idea of it being selfish, because we also label self-prioritization as selfish. And I think what we're really talking about is healthy and unhealthy selfishness.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, yeah. Because we definitely live in a culture here in the United States of, it's interesting. Like there is this pressure and expectation to be individual, to really, you know, put the one before the many. And yet when most of us, and I think when I say most of us, I think people from certain communities do that, there is there's a negative label associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not really supposed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you really, I think you're alluding to like different intersections of identity, or are you talking about a different idea of communities?
Yeah, I think the many intersections of identity.
Mm-hmm.
The majority culture, so to speak, or the majority culture. Um, it's okay for them to be selfish, or us to be selfish, or however we're identifying any given moment. And yet, if a marginalized community is doing that, then they're like it's a whole different story. It's a whole
Mm-hmm.
different experience. So yeah, I was not expecting it to get this conversation to go in that direction.
Welcome to All Up in It and our conversations in general. Yeah, so it sounded like, and I want to make sure that I'm not overly narrowing our conversation, because it sounds like thinking about what it means to not be a people pleaser is, oh, did your earring get hooked?
Yeah, it keeps
Yeah.
getting caught in the sweater. So yeah. Go
Um,
ahead. I'm listening. Don't mind me. Sorry, y'all.
That's part of the deal, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
um, so this practicing not being a people pleaser, this practicing boundaries and these kinds of things. Yeah, that's a heck of a thing to be all up in. Is that it,
Yeah.
what's that journey like for you these days?
Yeah. It's it is extremely freeing and also exhausting. There are, like, I have moments where I'm very clear about my boundaries. And it's interesting because, as you know, and I'm sure folks out there maybe probably don't know, but I am working and closing in on my yoga therapy certification. And yeah, I know, I'm so excited. And this is a focus for us right now as students of yoga therapy, and students of yoga in general in this particular sangha. And um, we've been doing a lot of work with what does it mean to decenter ourselves and yet stay connected to
Mhm.
ourselves without disconnecting from other.
Mhm.
So allowing another to be in the spotlight because they're the ones having the experience. How do I sit back, decenter, and also not lose sight of either of us,
Mhm.
especially as the therapist in the room, especially as the caretaker and the practitioner in the room,
Mhm.
but also as the other human in the room, as the other nervous system that's present.
Mhm.
And it can be really difficult because I am human, and there are moments that are triggering for me, and there are moments where I get wound up at like hearing about another's experience with injustice, another person's experience with, you know, any any of the isms out there, like it's just extremely frustrating. And I have to really learn how to dial back my nervous system when it's being triggered. And that's where those boundaries come in, and being very clear about why I'm doing that.
Mhm.
Because there's that, you call them gremlins, and I call them like part. There's this little part that wants to judge that, that wants to tell me that I'm not being a good therapist, I'm not being a good yogi, I'm not being a good person, I'm not being a good daughter, sister, partner, whatever, friend, because I am not trying to jump in and figure this problem out for them. And yet that bigger part of me is very clear that not only do I need to allow them the space to have their own journey and simply facilitate and hold space for them to do that, but I also owe it to myself to kind of stay in my own lane and my own business in some ways, and really allow allow that boundary to be there and allow that space to be there, so that I'm not spending all of my energy in ways that aren't healthy for me either.
Yes, totally, totally. And you know what? One of the many things that came up for me as I was listening to you, because there's so much richness in what you just said. But as people, as two white women who are both doing lots of anti-oppression work, starting within ourselves, right? I find that to be a really interesting part of the exploration and the deprogramming, which is like, what does it mean to hold meaningful, thoughtful, loving, connected space given my intersections of identity, right? Depending on the intersections of identity of the person that I'm sitting, I'm like hyper aware of white women's tears now, right? Because of the studying that we've done, right? And okay, what does it mean when I feel moved, to your point, about another person's experience of racism or something else, right? And I'm feeling myself triggered and sad and grieving, right? And it's not the time and it's not the place, but I don't want to alienate myself, right? And I don't want to be so disconnected from them that it looks like I'm not understanding the gravity of the story. You know where I'm going with all that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is when, it's like when you're experiencing something, you're having this experience of like, wow, I'm being impacted by this on an internal, like in an internal space. And yet it's not about me, it's about them right now.
Right.
How do I manage what's going on with me without shutting it down or ignoring it or minimizing it or pretending it's not there? Right. Did I get that?
Yeah, like not hijacking, but also not shutting
Right.
down, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really where discernment comes in. That ability once again to decenter, like this is not my time, but I will take time. And that's where, self-care is a very it's still very much a buzzword right now. It's like, oh, self-care, what does self-care mean? From my perspective, that's what self-care is. It's recognizing that there is a need that's showing up for me, and right now may not be the time. But rather than just either hijacking, like you said, hijacking that other person's experience and centering myself and making it about me, rather than doing that, and rather than ignoring it or pushing it away or minimizing or acting like it's not that important, there's an opportunity for me to look at, go, okay, who and what do I need in order to manage and process this experience? What are the tools that I need? Who are the people that I need? Because there's also, especially, and I think especially as we're doing the work of dismantling racism and white supremacy in our own systems as white women, or white people, it's extremely important to recognize that there are some people that we should not be turning to process our experiences. It's not their job to provide the labor, the emotional labor, to provide that space. That there are places for us to be, and there are places for us not to take that. And that is really, I think, extremely important. It's extremely important for us to be clear about that.
Yeah, totally agree. So let me rewind us back and I find myself, to transparently enough, doing some projecting on this work of boundaries and and I wonder what that's been feeling like to you as you've been. Like what did it feel like? I want to ask so many questions. What did it feel like when that person, that teacher, labeled it as a God complex?
I think I feel because it was so long ago. Um, that's a really good question. Like I am. Hmm. Like what's coming up for me right now, and again, you know me for a long time, so you know this about my history, is that um I grew up in a evangelical Southern Baptist practice, or uh, belief system, whatever you want to call it, um and have since left the church. Like it's just I don't jive with it anymore. It's not my value. It's not, we don't have the same values. So I think, being told that I have a God complex, there was a part of me that was a little offended by that, but I was like, excuse me? Like, I was a little offended. And yet there was this other part of me that was like, oh, okay, yeah, like, because I understand, and I had the relationship, I had such a wonderful relationship, or have such a wonderful relationship with this particular teacher, that when she said it, it really started to make sense. Like there was a bigger part of me that was like, oh, like that's, oh, was my experience growing up in a religion that can often be very oppressive for a lot of people. Was I just lost my train of thought. I think it's because it's such a big question for me. I'm like, wow, like this is, I might have to, like, I'm going to be processing this later. I can feel it. I'm like, whoa, how did I feel? Like it was such a long time ago. But I think it was just, it was challenging to hear. It was necessary to hear. And it was, I think it was jarring enough for my system to create, I think it was like, it was jarring enough to be a catalyst for me to really look at how I was showing up. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm really kind of showing up as this it was more that like this all-knowing being without that couldn't seem to trust that somebody else knew what was best for them, that they needed me to tell them what was best for them, rather than trusting them to figure it out for themselves.
Yes, that is the crux of the people pleaser, right? That we're attempting to be mind readers. Yes. Right. So, and then we're attempting to flex into what we believe the other person wants or needs or whatever. Because I know you, I happen to know that you have a lot cooking in your life these days, and I wonder if there's anything else that you're all up in that you that feels like it's nagging to come forward at this point.
Oh gosh, all up in. What am I all up in? I'm all up in so many things.
Right.
So many things. Yeah, I mean, I am. I mean, I am. There's so many things. Like I don't know. Like my brain's just firing off in so many different directions right now. Yeah, I mean, I am really fascinated by the nervous system right now. Like I am. It's like I can't get enough information about the nervous system, and how helpful it is for us to understand our nervous system. And especially working with the population that I work with. I mean, I typically work with people who've experienced significant trauma and interpersonal violence. And many of them will come in with this narrative in their head that they should have done this differently, they should have done that differently, they should have done something differently, and this wouldn't have happened. And when I'm able to sit down and help them understand what their nervous system does, that there are levels to our nervous system, that our nervous system has a natural ability to freeze, it has a natural ability to flee and fight, it has a natural ability to be homeostatic and balanced, and that all of these are accessible. But when our life is in danger, when there is a threat, and a need to survive, everything kind of goes offline as far as the cognitive mind is concerned. And we are just surviving and helping them understand that. So I get so excited about it, and I'm like, and they're not better right now. Like I love it. And it's a lot of, it's just been really, it's just really exciting. Like it's fairly new information. I mean, polyvagal theory's been around for a little while now, but it's only just becoming something that we're talking about with trauma survivors. And it's really, really cool to be able to share that with them, and then also share it through the lens of yoga therapy, which is really awesome to like kind of like, how did these two intersect? Because they do intersect. Yoga has been around for like thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I see all these tools popping up in these different caregiving and human services roles. And I like almost every single one of them, we can look back and go, yeah, yoga was doing that a long time ago. Go figure. So, yeah. So, I mean, just that's what I get really excited about right now. You know, to the point where everybody else is like, will you stop talking about the dorsal vagal, you know, parasympathetic nervous system? Will you just stop? And I'm just like, I can't.
You're like, no, I won't.
It's just, I'm like, I'm very ventral vagal right now. And they're like, shut up. Stop it. So,
yeah. So as you're navigating all these various spaces and your own healing and growth and all of those things that we have the opportunity to do as humans, what are some of the tools that you're utilizing, whether inner or outer?
Yeah. I mean, my yoga practice is absolutely necessary. You know, whether it's movement, whether it's breath, whether it's meditation, whether it's, you know, navigating my boundaries and just being very clear about being really centered into myself. It is absolutely necessary for me to function anymore. Like, I mean, it's just, I know if I'm veering out of practice, that my nervous system and my day-to-day life is going to veer with it, and not in a healthy way. So very clear that practice is extremely important for me. And I think also learning how to, I don't know if these are outer tools necessarily, but being very clear about who in my life can handle what. Like,
oh, hell yeah.
Being very clear that not everybody in my life can be everything for me. You know, that there are some people who, if I need touchy-feely, gooey support, there are certain people in my life that can do that, and there's certain people in my life that cannot do that. You know, when I'm looking for advice and insight, there are certain people in my life that can do that, and there's certain people that cannot do that in my life. So really being very clear about the, you know, the roles that I am assigning to other people in my life, and being respectful of their boundaries and their abilities and what they bring to the table. So that, and chickens, like, oh my gosh, chickens. Like, I mean, like, I just, every time, like, I go out to feed my chickens, like, I always sing to my chickens. I talk to them. Like, I just love it. You know, my dog is, I mean, I talk to my dog all the time, but I mean, really, like, that, you know, having, you know, my animals and my garden and just things like, you know, I really like those things that, like, I get to do around the house. I like being at home. I love being at home. I love being at home. Love it. So yeah. Good times. Yeah.
No, but oh my gosh, you know I feel that. You know that I'm right there with you. That I can easily go a very long time and then realize I haven't left the house since I work from home. I was like, oh right, I haven't left here in a long time.
Yeah, and I'm like, I love being at home. And you know, it's like, and now that the weather's getting nice, like my partner and we're traveling a little bit more because, you know, we go visit friends, and you know, he plays in a couple of bands, and you know, and it's a lot of fun. And also, you know, there's a lot of traveling, so I'm spending less time at home. And I get home and I'm like, oh, so nice just to sit here. I'm gonna sit right here.
That's one of my favorite parts of travel, right? Is like
Yeah.
getting home and being like, yeah, this place is the stuff.
Yes, here we are. I love this. Yes. Huge fan. Huge fan.
Yeah. I feel like I heard embedded into your tools a lot of creativity and a lot of connection, like to the broader oneness, so to speak. Am I reading in too far?
No, no, I think, yeah, like, I mean, I really, the creativity piece, like, I mean, I love foraging. Like, I like just being out in the yard. I'm like, ooh, violets are coming in. Let's pick the violets. I'll make violet jelly. And like, I'm always looking at around, like, what can I make with this? And I also make soap. Like, I have a little soap company, and I'm always looking at, like, ooh, what could I do with that? Ooh, I could make some soap with that, or I could, yeah. So like, I think I am most creative when I'm at home because I am so comfortable, and it does. I didn't really think about that, but I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a big tool for how I am navigating everything that I've got going on is moments of creativity
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
on by home.
Yeah. I think there really is something in that. And I think it ties back into what you were saying about self-care, though. Like I do think, I mean, clearly the idea of self-care has been hijacked into something that's very commercialized when really it's really about what's the fuel, as you were alluding to earlier. I think it's really about what is the fuel that we need in order to do the work that we're here to do
Yeah, absolutely.
and to show up in
Absolutely.
values aligned ways, which isn't always the easiest thing ever.
No, no, it's
Hmm.
extremely difficult, and
Yeah.
yet not impossible.
No, no, not impossible. A worthwhile challenge, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Well, my friend, there is an invitation at the end of every All Up in It to spotlight an organization or nonprofit or a group that you just really love, and I wonder who you might like to
Yeah.
spotlight.
Yeah, I would like I'm having a hard time between two. So I'm
Okay,
gonna like I think I
go with
told you about
two.
one, but I think I've changed my mind. Like, I mean, not changed my mind, but for those, even if you're not local to our area, to the Roanoke Valley in Virginia, there's an incredible pay what you can cafe that is happening in downtown Roanoke. It's called Ursula's Cafe. It is a nonprofit that works to feed everybody regardless of their ability to pay. And they do, I mean, it's a community arts center. They have everything that they do, whether it's an event, whether it's meals, whether it's uh like, I mean, they have like open mic nights and all kinds of things. Everything is either free or it's pay what you can. So it's really about inclusivity and availability. And my very dear friend Amy Trowell is the co-president, and with her partner, and Jordan Fallon, and they're an incredible team and doing incredible work. And they've made such a huge impact on the community already in making sure that people who otherwise might not be able to get a nice warm meal can come in and have a meal, but not just have a meal, but also have like come in and be in community with other people. And I've gotten to witness it firsthand, and it's just a really beautiful, beautiful experience. And so you can look them up, ursulascafe.org. They're on all the socials, and they're doing just a really amazing work. So I'm very proud of them.
That makes my heart so happy. Their storefront makes my heart happy every time I go
I
by it. I'm just like,
know.
oh,
And Ursula is a T-Rex. Like, Ursula is like I mean, like, yeah. So there is an Ursula. She's a T-Rex, and she's adorable, and she wears different costumes. And like, I mean, yeah, like she's a rock star.
as are you, as are you.
Oh, thank you.
And to that I say, roar.
Roar.
Um,
Big head, little arms.
yes. Oh, thank you for joining
Oh,
me in this conversation and for
thank you
reflecting
for
with me and
having me.
sharing, and being willing to be in the messy middle of it, right? We come here
Yeah,
without polish and with curiosity. So
I love it. I
yes.
love it.
And so to you and to whoever else may be watching, I wish you all ease and joy in the midst of whatever the learning curve.